So, all right, it's Thursday, and I was having a hard time making a video this week because, where was it? Because I've been cleaning my house before I actually get to my stuff, and I have some laundry to fold, and then, and then I thought to myself, and I was like, work at home never ends. So I'm just going to do what I want to do, which is do my video, because I'm very excited and I want to keep doing this, right? So I'm going to read this off to you really quick here. It says, "Hi everyone, thank you so much for being here. This video is my personal story, just me sharing my own experiences, my thoughts, and the things that I've been learning and going through. It's not psychological advice, therapy, or professional guidance of any kind. I'm not a licensed therapist or counselor, and nothing I share is meant to replace professional help. Everyone's journey is different, so please take what resonates and leave the rest. If you're struggling, I encourage you to reach out to a qualified professional who can support you. This is simply my heart, my truth, and my story. I hope it brings some comfort or connection. Thank you for listening." All right, so we started, again, this project. Let me re-say it for myself. It's for me and it's for God. And the reason that I want to share this with you is because all through my life, all through my entire life, I felt like I felt too much, okay? All through my life, I felt like I would get my feelings hurt more than the typical person. Something would happen and then I would just be like completely overwhelmed by tears. I would be completely overwhelmed by just feeling, just my heart hurting, for the things that people did. As I was cleaning this morning, I thought, I wanted to understand why people kept hurting me. Like, that is why. I wanted to understand, why does it hurt me so much? Why does everything hurt me so much? Why is there people walking around and things don't hurt them as much? Why is it that I feel so much? You know what I mean? And ever since I was a little girl, I think I was probably like 5, I think. I was living in Mexico with my grandmother. And I remember her asking me what I thought about, what if I thought that people went to heaven or hell. Like, I remember her asking me those questions. And I felt so seen by that question. I felt so seen by her when she asked me that. And I remember just this feeling in my stomach and feeling so excited that an adult wanted to know how I felt and what I thought, and if it was, and whatever I gave her was important for her to hear. You know what I mean? That's, I think, and ever since I grew up and I started living the world, I was searching for that. I was searching for that feeling. I was searching for it. I always wanted to, I'm going to turn this off because it's really annoying when people are like messaging me and I'm trying to get into my feelings. So let me turn this off. Really quick here. Sleep. Okay. Yeah, please leave me alone. All right. So ever since I remember thinking, I was into self-help a lot before, and I was always, one of the things that I remember that people would say in self-help was like, remember when you were a child, what were the things that made you so happy, right? And I would always go back to that feeling. It was one day that my grandmother asked me that. And I remember answering her the question, and then I remember I got interrupted and I needed to do an errand for somebody, and I left. And I remember skipping away from that conversation because I was so happy. I was so happy that she had asked me what I thought about something so, to me, important, And ever since I was that little, now that I'm an adult, I'm going to be 40 this year, I wanted that feeling again. I searched my entire life for that feeling. And you know what happened? God gave it to me again. He gave it to me again through the Big Five. That feeling of being seen, that feeling of being understood, that feeling of being, it made sense to me, that excitement, that willingness to understand, or that willingness to understand the world, I felt that again when I started really looking into the big five. And why did I start looking into the big five? Because I was in pain. Because I was in pain. I was going through two really traumatic things in my life. And I was trying to figure out, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? You know, why is this hurting me? Why? And the reason I was trying to search for that is because, one, I wanted, if I know why you're doing this to me, then I'm still going to love you. I'm still going to be there for you. If I know why, then I can reason myself out of helping you. I can reason myself out of being there. And then the other thing was, I was having a lot of issues with one of my sons. It was just like, we were just fighting all the time. I was just like, he's 8, you know, but I just couldn't, like, I remember just being angry all the time. And then when I became so angry, I hated the person that I became when I was angry. I hated that person, and I wanted to understand. It hurt me so much to lose my patience with him, to just like scream at him, to like, and then you know what the worst part is? That even if I became this mean person, he would still not change. Like the next day, he would do the same thing. So it wasn't like, oh, I was angry. I would go through this terrible like feeling of just like being so confused as to how am I supposed to handle this. And then like I would turn into this person that I hated. I would look back and I would just bawl my eyes out because I was like, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? I would bawl my eyes out. And then nobody around me understood me. Nobody around me understood me. Nobody around me gave me good advice. They never gave me good advice because they all said, you have to be tough. And I'm like, but that is not who I am. I am not a tough, I'm not like your quote unquote tough person that has a hard heart. Like I'm not that. Even if I wanted to be that, I'm not that, you know? And so I was searching over and over and over again. What is it? I have to figure this out because it fucking hurts. Because it hurts so much and I have to figure it out. And so God gave me this. He gave me this map and he said, here it is. He said, here it is. But he had given it to me before. It was just in the back of my mind, you know? He had given it to me before, but I didn't know what I was holding at the time that I read on it, that I heard from Jordan Peterson talk about it. I didn't understand the power of it. I really didn't. Until I would say 8 years later, that I was again in a place where I had to understand the why behind it. Why was I fighting so much with my son? Why was he the way that he was? Why was I feeling so angry? Why did I feel so terrible? Why did this relationship that I was having was so confusing to me? Like I was like, what is going on? Like, what is going on? I have to understand this because it hurts me. It hurts me. You know what I mean? And so that is why, and that is the very beginning. That is the very beginning of this very long story of my life. And I am going to tell it, parts of it, all to you, because I know that there's somebody out there that's also in that place that I was. And God gave me this, and that's why, I want to be able to use the gifts that God gave me to honor him by sharing this with you, and by that it hopefully helps you understand yourself and understand the people around you. And if you are in that place that I was, then it guides you to God, because this is what this did to me. And whenever I first figured out about it, I had no idea. I had absolutely zero idea that I was going to be leading to God. Like this was going to lead me to him. I had no idea. I thought that I always was curious about the world. Always. Again, since I was a little girl, always asked questions. I always wanted to know why behind the why behind the why. Always. I just knew that adults had a capacity for my type of reasoning, my type of questions, okay? So I would stop asking questions because I knew I was kind of getting on their nerves, you know? Anyways, fast forward, you know, since I became a mother, I have 3 boys, I became a wife, I was trying to understand. I've always been trying to understand relationships around me. And, you know, I had found something that was just like, again, because I was going through the pain that I was going through, I came back to the big 5. And when I was like looking into this and really trying to understand it, and believe me, it's been November. It's been since November of 2025 that I've been like, every day I've been studying this, every single day. There's no day, well, there's a few days I have gone by because I went to Mexico for vacation and didn't have great Wi-Fi. So that's why I wasn't like studying this. But ever since then, ever since November of 2025, I've been going through this. So you take November, December, January, February, March, April, May. It's been 7 months, okay? 7 months since I started really understanding this, and 7 months since my life has completely changed. And and so God answered my prayers. God answered my prayers because I really was trying to understand. I was trying to understand with all my heart what was happening. And this is what he gave me. And this is why I'm giving this to you, because I prayed to him. I asked him to help me honor the gifts he gave me, you know? Because I know that they don't belong to me, you know? And the reason I get emotional is because I had been waiting all my life for this. All my life. I had been waiting for it, and it came. And that's why. That's why I get this way. But, my hope is that other people that are like me will be able to have a key. A key to the treasure box through my videos. And once I give you the key, it's up to you to take it and try to find the doors. You know what I mean? Because I know that, one, not everyone wants to know the truth, because the truth hurts. The truth hurts a lot. 2, sometimes you're at a place in your life that you're not ready for the truth, because the truth can break you completely. It can destroy you. And if you're a person that's not ready for that, then it might not be a good thing, you know? I think that the only way to know if you're ready for it is if the pain is so strong that you're willing to stand with the pain instead of running away from it. That's the only thing. And you know, I've learned, yesterday I came to this realization that's so heartbreaking. It's so heartbreaking, but it's the truth. I learned, or I know now, not just in my head, okay, not just intellectually, but somatically in my body. And it's so scary at the same time, that in order for love to exist, pain has to exist. They are the same. They are the same thing. They are not separated from each other. They are the same thing. Love and pain are together. You cannot have one without the other. There's no way to separate them. They belong together. And that hurts. That hurts. You know what I mean? Because I see my kids and I love them so much. But I know that that's the future, you know? And that's the thing, that when you have kids, you have to accept that. You have to accept, in a way, you know, some people don't think about that. Some people just have them and don't really think about the future, right? But that's the thing when you have children, that you take on this responsibility of knowing that the love that you are bringing into your life will also have pain. And that is tough. You know what I mean? Because they are not separate. They're not separate. They're the same thing. They're together. They're together. And you will have very loving, wonderful, full of love moments in your life, but the pain will also come eventually. And hopefully, you know, with the grace of God and with the grace of trying to understand the world around you, you will have the strength to not run away from the pain. Because the only way you can live a fulfilling life, and the only way you can meet God, and the only way you can get to the love of God, is through the acceptance of the pain. So that is why I'm doing this video, and that is why I'm trying to do this channel without other demands coming over me. You know what I mean? Because as a mom of 3 boys, one has autism, you know, one neurotypical, and then I have a toddler. The ongoing things of my life at home I have a lot to do all the time, every day. You know what I mean? So in order for me to do these videos, I have to just say, I also matter. My gifts matter, and I'm going to try to share them as honestly as I can. And also praying to God that He helps me honor the gifts that He gave me to be able to share them with you. So I'll go back to the fun stuff. I'll go back to, okay, so we've touched on the big 5, and I've gone through, again, this all started in 1884, and we're down to 1985 with Paul Costa Jr. and Robert McCrae. Okay, I printed a picture of them. So this is McCrae and this is Costa. Okay, these are 2 researchers. So they were not looking into what Goldberg was looking at. They were not trying to figure out, you know, is this true? Is a 5-factor true? Like, they were looking at a different thing. So they were working at Baltimore Longitudinal Study of Aging. It's short BLSA. Okay. So the questions that they were asking themselves is, how do personality influences people's fulfillment in life, in the aging? Okay, by the time they started working in this question, you know, trying to understand this study had already been going on for 20 plus years. Okay, so they had a lot of data to come up with. All right, guys, I had to put my baby to sleep. So I'm back. I am back. And I had a little bit of peanut butter and jelly and banana. It's so good. And I'm having black iced coffee. Yummy. Okay. All right, let's get back to this. All right, so 1885, right? So we went through all the stuff. Again, it started in 1884, the big 5, okay? All right, so 1885, Robert McCrae and Paul Costa Jr., these handsome guys over here, these guys, they started working at the Baltimore Institute of Aging, okay? they started working in it's called Baltimore Longitudinal Study of Aging, BLSA, for short, okay? So by the time they started working on for this, the study had been going on for 25 to 30 plus years. So there was already a lot of data, all right? So what they wanted to see with this study is that what were the contributing factors that how personality affects aging. That was their question. Aging, health, and well-being. They wanted to understand how is it that this affects when you age. Okay, that was their question. Now, the big five, the 5 traits of personality had already been found by a lot of researchers before, psychology researchers. But they were more about analyzing predictive behavior, right? Like predicting, I guess, what career would be best for you, kind of thing, right? So these guys, what they wanted to see is how the behaviors actually showed up as you aged. What were the outcomes of those behaviors? And they began with three things of the big 5: neuroticism, extroversion, and openness. They started studying just those 3. Why? Because they were the ones that had the most data. Okay, at that time, they were the ones that had the most data. Those 3 factors. I did a lot of notes today, and I'm like all over the place with them. All right, so yeah, so that's what they did. Now, what did they find about these 3 things? So let me share this with you, okay? So the 3 things that they found through their research is that, let me go back a little bit to the Baltimore Longitudinal Study of Aging, okay? Because I wanted to understand this. I'm like, how do you even get to this? Like, how are these studies started? Like, who even like thinks about this? Who like does this? Why do people take part in it? So this is what happened. The reason the study started was because there was a doctor. I'm all over the place. I'm sorry, guys. There was a doctor. Okay, a doctor. What was his name? Dr. Schock. So Dr. Schock wanted to study normal, healthy aging and living people for long periods of time. So he wanted to understand what actually made a person a fulfilled human being once they were in the aging process. Because at the time, he didn't just want to look at sick people or people that had passed away and examine their bodies. He wanted to see the actual people that were living, like what made their life successful. So that's why it started, and that I think he was working in Baltimore, Dr. Schock, okay? He believed that the best way to understand how people age successfully was to follow the same healthy individuals for a long period of time. And then the other question I was wondering, I was like, so who says I'll sign up for this? Like, that's, you know what I mean? Because this is for years, for decades. You're going to be you're going to be asked questions, going to be visited by psychologists, by like medical people and stuff. So this is actually a volunteer study. People volunteer. And the benefit of it is that you get free, very thorough medical and health evaluations every few years. So you receive, and then you also receive valuable feedback. Okay, so you get very valuable information as a participant. And then the other benefit is that you get a deep satisfaction knowing that you are contributing to important aging research that helps future generations. So those are the benefits of people that participate. And they are always looking for volunteers 20 age and up that are willing to commit to regular visits over many years. What else? Let me see. So that's how it started. Okay. So again, this was a study to be repeated across decades and watch what happens naturally. So they just wanted to understand what happens naturally to these people, right? To whoever volunteers for that. So 20 plus years later, McCrae and Costa Jr. are studying this as well, the aging on people, all right? And 3 of the factors that they're analyzing again is neuroticism, extroversion, and openness. And I'm going to give you again I'm going to give you a short description of what each of those are because it's important to understand what they are, okay? So extroversion, neuroticism, tendency to experience negative emotions and stress, okay? This is neuroticism. This is being tendency to experience negative emotions and stress, all right? So I'll give you examples. Emotional reactivity, quick anger, impulsivity, okay? Anxious, you get anxious. Sadness, shyness, depression, okay, self-consciousness. So all of these are part of neuroticism. So just feeling, it's more of like you feel bad about yourself, okay? It's like you feel bad. It's like guilt, right? It's like kind of like self-guilt, like sad, depressed. So tendency to experience negative emotions and stress, all right? So that's what neuroticism is. So that's the first one they were looking at. Then they were looking also at extroversion. And what's extroversion? Extroversion is outward energy, sociability, and positive emotion. And some of the behavioral traits that we have in extroversion are enthusiasm, cheerfulness, warmth, gregarious, positive emotions, assertiveness, drive, leadership, okay? So these are extroversions. Outward energy, being social and having positive emotions. That's extroversion. Enthusiasm. Enthusiasm and assertiveness are the big two under extroversion. So how enthusiastic are you? Do you get excited about little stuff, right? Do you get excited about, eating your favorite meal, having a cup of coffee in the morning, or looking at the beautiful sunset, or seeing how pretty the trees are now in the spring time, or I don't know, things. What are the things that excite you? And do they tend to be like little things, or do you just kind of like, that's enthusiasm. Assertiveness, how willing are you able to say, I want this, what I want matters. Like that's what assertiveness is. Leadership, drive, okay? That's what assertiveness is. Being able to be assertive with your needs, your personal needs. So that's extroversion. And then we have, the last one is the openness. Openness is curiosity, imagination, openness to new ideas. That's openness, okay? So those are the things that they were first looking at. And so what they found out through all of this is that they found a few things, all right? So they found out that we can either have, so all of these 5 traits are on a spectrum. You have very low, very high. And then you go from number 1 to 100. Your typical is a 50, okay? That's the typical score of someone, a 50. Oh yeah, that is asleep. I don't know what that went through. All right, so that's your typical score. And so again, all of these 5 traits, but they started studying 3 only because those were the only ones that had the most data. Neuroticism, negative emotions. How likely are you to face negative emotions? The other one is extroversion. This one is made up of assertiveness and enthusiasm. And then the other one is openness. Openness is made up of curiosity, okay, imagination, and open to new ideas. So these 3 things that we're looking at, seeing how do these 3 personality traits affect people once they age. And so one of the things that they found out was with neuroticism, having high neuroticism, having tendency to experience negative emotions and stress, having that very high in your personality, that links to poor physical and mental health as people age. Okay, so having a lot of depression, a lot of sadness, a lot of quick anger, a lot of nervousness, self-consciousness, shyness, social anxiety, like all those things give you they lead to poor physical and mental health in the future. Okay, having high neuroticism. All right, extroversion. Having high extroversion, again, enthusiasm and assertiveness, having these two high in your personality traits, they're positive emotions. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that when you have these high, you actually get like your brain loves it. It's kind of like sparks up. Okay, that's what that means. It's like you get a dopamine hit in a way, right? Like you're like, like it's I feel like I don't know if you can think of anything that makes you excited, that's what happens when you have these high. So high extroversion generally is associated with positive emotions. So whenever people have this high, they tend to have better social support and higher overall well-being when this is high. All right. And so it also protects them mentally. Although with time, the warmth, enthusiasm tends to gradually decline as people age, because I feel like enthusiasm is very energetic. So as you age, you tend to just get tired more easily. So I think it's just harder to be very enthusiastic as you age, because it takes a lot of energy. And then the other thing that they found about the openness, and again, openness is curiosity and imagination, is that higher the openness is linked to better cognitive function, creativity, and adaptability. People stayed curious and engaged with new ideas, which help protect against cognitive decline. However, openness also tended to decline gradually with age. So these are the three things that they found studying these behaviors. Okay, now, the thing that they found that was very interesting is that when they were looking at all the studies, they kept coming back to two traits over and over and over again that were not part of what they were looking at: agreeableness and conscientiousness. It kept appearing over and over again. Okay, so by the late 1980s, they noticed something powerful. No matter what method they used, two more broad dimensions kept appearing in people. So these dimensions kept coming up over and over again with powerful information. So that's how they added agreeableness and conscientiousness. So because they found, so the very in the beginning, they created a test called NEO, right? And these they're short for the neuroticism, extroversion, and openness, NEO. After analyzing the data, and they kept coming back to these two additional traits, agreeableness and conscientiousness, they then revised their test to be NEO-PI, so neuroticism, extroversion, openness personality inventory revised 1992. And so they included the two traits. And once they included the two traits, it dramatically improved the ability to predict real life outcomes in people. Okay? They turned out to be especially powerful in long-term life success. So, what did they figure out with these two traits? High agreeableness. And what is agreeableness again? Agreeableness is, I feel like I'm screaming. Okay, agreeableness is tendency toward cooperation, empathy, and kindness. It's made up of compassion and politeness. There's two things that make up agreeableness: compassion and politeness. How high are you on these traits? Okay, and the other one is conscientiousness. This one is so interesting, guys. Okay, very interesting. So conscientiousness is basically how good are you. It's tendency toward organization, responsibility, and goal-directed behavior. How good are you to set out to what you want to do in life? How good are you at that? Okay? How easy or difficult is it for you to actually have a goal and achieve it? Okay, that makes up conscientiousness. But there are two sub-traits below this, okay? So conscientiousness, we have conscientiousness right here, and then we have two things. We have industriousness, and then we have orderly. we have industriousness, and then we have orderliness, okay? Those make up conscientiousness. Now, this is something that I figured out recently. Again, it's like you feel like you know something, and then you're like, no, I don't know everything. Let me keep going. All right, so this is important. Industriousness is hard work, persistence, drive, achievement striving, self-discipline. That is what makes industriousness. All right? Industriousness is how much hustle you have in life. That's industriousness. Okay? That's part of conscientiousness, but it doesn't make the whole conscientiousness score. Then we have orderliness. Orderliness is organization, reliability, carefulness, order, dutifulness, competence, deliberation. Orderliness is more how orderly are you in life, right? How orderly is your life in general? But then orderliness is not just on the outside. In the beginning and the very start of the Big Five, I used to think high orderliness just meant like how well you like systems, how ordered do you like your home, your, I don't know, different stuff, right? I always thought of material stuff, but no, orderliness also plays into your emotions. What is the word? How uncomfortable are you to have scattered emotions inside of you? Okay? That also plays into orderliness. And that is why, again, I always had so many questions about the world. Okay? I always wanted to understand. I was born in Mexico. I came here when I was 8.5. And I've lived here now for 30 years. Okay? But when I would visit Mexico, there was always questions about people that I would always think. I would think, why is it that Mexico, why is it that there's so many businesses over there? Or why is it that when in Mexico, I feel like I'm home? Why is it that I feel like I'm back to where I belong? Okay? Why is it that the United States is so organized? Why is it that everything's so, where I live, everything's very beautiful. The infrastructure is beautiful. Everything's very organized, orderly. It's beautiful. And I'm like, why is it that it's not like that in Mexico everywhere? And besides the economic factor, okay, I know that's like an obvious thing, but I wanted to really comprehend that besides the economic factor. And so it's not just about how orderly you like things to be in your space, in your home, in your office. It's also how much is there a drive inside of you to understand your feelings or your questions? You see what I mean? So, conscientiousness. And the other thing that I realized about conscientiousness, this is what the world prides, okay? This is what the world will tell you. You are successful if you have this high. But not orderliness. Orderliness is not prized so much. I mean, it's nice to have an orderly home, but industriousness is what gives you the power to push through everything that you need to push through. Okay? So industriousness is what actually will drive you to just do things. And then some people will say, how do you have the energy to do all of that? That's industriousness. If you know anyone that you just know they get things done, they're high on the industriousness. Okay? And this is something that I realized recently. So my industriousness is actually typical. I have a 50, 56. That's what I got. I took this a while back, but I got it. I'm typical in industriousness. And when I understood this, I was like, wow, I used to believe, because when I had my kids, oh gosh, there was a time in my life where so this is one of the things I'll share with you right now. Okay, so my industriousness is 56. My orderliness is really, really high. It was 93 when I took the exam, okay? It was extremely high. And I used to think, oh my gosh, I was like, but, so one of the things that I understood now is that when you take this self-assessment, or one of the things that I understood with industriousness is that I used to think that that I would be able, this when I had my YouTube channel before, I would be exhausted, like exhausted, okay? I'd be so tired of everything that I needed to do at home because I would never be happy, okay? And this is the reason why I was never happy once I had kids, okay? My orderliness is very high and my industriousness is typical. So in order for these to match up, it really wasn't going to happen with my energy because I'm like basically reaching something I can never reach. You see what I mean? Never. I can never get to this because this is like all the way down here. And then also I used to think that, okay, I thought that industriousness was like a muscle you build. Like, oh my gosh, if I can just like, if I push and push and push every single day, then eventually I will be able to do more physically. I used to think that, but I realized that that's not true. That yes, there's ways to hack your industriousness, and I'll touch on that in the future. But industriousness is basically the score that you have, okay? There's ways to amplify it, but it really doesn't change it. It's kind of like the other traits help push it forward in a way, okay? And so that's why, like, I'll give you the example of my mom. Like, my mom was always such a hard worker. Like, when I was growing up, she was babysitting like 5 toddlers. She would cook for like 10 guys that would go eat lunch. And then she was like, and then when she would just sit down, she would think about, oh my goodness, if I had my restaurant, I would be doing this instead of just sitting here doing nothing, okay? And so as I grew up, and as I would compare myself to her, right? I would be like, why can't I would always ask this question. I'd be like, why is it that women back in the day would be able to do so much? Why is it that I can't do so much? Why is it that my grandmother was able to, like, she had 10 kids and she was able to, like, she had very orderly home. She had food on the table. My parents weren't wealthy, but there was, what is the word? Stability. There was some sort of a stability in the home. And I was like, how can she have done that with 10 kids? I have 3 boys and I am like drowning, right? I would always be asking these questions. And I was able to figure it out. Why? Because her industriousness was very high and her orderliness was also high. That's why I also always questioned when I would go to Mexico, like, why is it that people have, like, you'd go somewhere and their house is like spotless, and you'd go somewhere and their house wasn't spotless? Like, I would always wonder that. I would be like, why does that happen, you know? And so this is something that is so important, okay? And this ties also to first world countries, okay? Conscientious, on average, not everyone, and not everyone's the same, of course. But these are the traits that move people forward, okay? These are the traits that if they're high on average in humans, the country will move forward. Industriousness also helps you plan future orientation. So if you are very high in industriousness, you're very good at future planning. You're very good at taking care of the boring tasks that people don't like to take care of. You're very good at just hustling, like doing what needs to be done and not thinking too much about it. That's what it is. And then orderliness is more about the order of things, right? And so in order for a world to move forward, the average people's conscientiousness has to be high. It has to be high, or has to be like above average, I think. That's just my personal, note. I haven't done research on that. But so conscientiousness, though, also is what will tell people you are a success, right? When you are able to achieve your goals, then to everyone else, you will be a success because, wow, look, they have all this wealth, or they have all like this big time job, or they're like, I don't know, they have everything that they could ever want, right? But having high industriousness does not give you that fulfillment in life once you get to a place where you basically have had a successful life. Because, the other question I would always wonder was, I would remember, I used to listen to Tim Ferriss. He's got a podcast. And he would talk about guys, or he'd talk about people that he knew that were like billionaires, and they were unhappy. They were like completely alone. And not to say that's good. That's terrible. that's terrible that they were like that. But he says that. He says, you know, they have everything that you think that anybody would want, right? Because when we don't have, like, when you're not rich or you have all the wealth that you want, you think that if I was just rich, I would be able to solve all problems. That would just be the end of all suffering, right? But then I think what brings us back to reality is seeing the people that do have it all tend to still have problems, right? Tend to still have a lot of issues, or tend to feel alone because there's no one that they can actually trust around them. And I think with people that are very high in conscientiousness, especially industriousness, once they hit like the late age, I think there is a void. I remember also Lewis House. I used to always listen to his podcast, and I remember that there was a podcast that he said something like, you know, I get to a point and I reach something. It was years ago. I don't know if he's at this place anymore, but he was when I listened to him back in the day. He said, I reached this goal and I think I will finally be fulfilled. I will finally be fulfilled. And he's like, I get there and then it's empty. Like, I get to that heel and that's it. And then that void is still there. And I believe that people that are very, very high in industriousness get, like, yes, they're able to have a lot of external success. They're able to get things done. They're able to, you know, and which is good, you know. I mean, it's good, but we also need to understand that having very high industriousness will not lead to complete fulfillment. Like, yes, you'll be fulfilled, but then once you are in your old age, it's not gonna take maybe the void away that you felt in your life. So that's something that I learned about conscientiousness. Very interesting. So conscientiousness is tendency towards organization, responsibility, or goal-directed behavior. And the other thing that we're able to find was that so high conscientiousness was one of the strongest predictions of health, career, achievement, longevity, and overall well-being. And then, did I touch on agreeableness? I'm not even sure. Okay, so then I'll touch on agreeableness. I don't believe I did. Okay, so the other thing that they found that kept appearing was agreeableness. And this is the gold mine, guys, for me. I'll tell you later. Not today, but I'll tell you later. Okay, agreeableness. Tendency toward cooperation, empathy, and kindness. Agreeable people. You just know who's agreeable. You know it, okay? How do you know it? It's easy to get along with them. Okay, that's how you know it. How do you know it? You just, I mean, they're nice. You know what I mean? You don't have to worry that they'll be like rude for no reason. And so two of the things that make agreeableness, or two of the things is compassion and politeness. Those are two things that make somebody an agreeable person. All right, so that's agreeableness. And having high agreeableness is predicted better relationships, more social support, and lower conflict. So that's what having high agreeableness predicted in life. So what are the traits? So I'll give you the traits that predicted all together. I'll give you the traits that they through their study figured out were predicted better outcomes for people when they're aged. So we'll start with the high agreeableness, high conscientiousness, lower neuroticism, high extroversion, and high openness. Those are the things that predicted somebody when they got older, they were just happier, okay? And so in the beginning, the neuroticism, extroversion, openness were great for understanding curiosity and emotions, but agreeableness and conscientiousness were the ones that best predicted how well people actually functioned in life over decades. So the long duration of the study allowed them to see how personality traits change or stay stable across decades of adult life, and how those traits predict real life outcomes like health, well-being, cognitive function, and longevity. I'm trying to see if I covered everything. Yeah, I think I did. All right, and so they created the test, okay? And this exam, ever since they created it, so before they created, so again, all right, so you see how these big 5 traits, they weren't just somebody just like thought about them and then this was made and everybody follows it. It was like different people, different times, years later. I'll grab this, or let me look at this, or this. It's just like, that's why there's so much data. That's why it's so reliable. That's why it's so predictable. That's why if you out there study it like I've been studying it, you are like, you start understanding people. Like you just, you see people and you'll think, or you'll like, I know for me, like today I was thinking of like people in the past that I've, they've gone through like pain, and I'm like, why did this person do that? And then I'll start thinking about it. I'm like, oh, it's because of this, it's because of that, it's because of, it's like you'll just understand people. And then and what else? Yeah, so it's just amazing because I remember it's like sometimes people will, it's like, it's like the reason I'm also doing my YouTube channel is because I love talking about this and nobody around me cares, okay? So I'm like, I need to talk to somebody about this. Whenever, I analyze somebody that, is close to me or that I know, and I'm like, oh, this person does that. It's like, you're like a psychic in a way, even though you're not a psychic, okay? I'm not saying that you are, but it's like, if you really start understanding this, you really start knowing the behaviors of people without having to even have them take a test sometimes, if you really know them every day. And again, that is why the big 5 is so, and I remember when Jordan Peterson would talk about it, and he would say, it's the most empirical data-based information out there. It's like, it's so powerful. It's so powerful. And that's why in the beginning, when I was having so many aha moments, I was just shocked. I was like, how can nobody know about this? How is this not mainstream news? But it's fine. As long as I know about it, I think, that's fine. But it's so powerful. Once you really understand it, it's powerful. So before McCrae and Costa, before they came around, personality psychology was still kind of scattered. There wasn't a lot of consensus, okay? Yes, Goldberg proved the big 5. He what is the word? He named the term the big 5. But it was still like his papers and his research was kind of simmered. It simmered for years, right? So when they came around and they got this other questionnaire, they figured out the questionnaire, that's when it really changed. By the late 1990s, early 2000s, it had become the closest thing to a consensus model. So if there's anything in personality psychology, they will use that NEOPIR. Like that is what is used in psychology settings to understand personality, okay? So, and this was just like, it was just wow. When they came up with these findings, it changed personality psychology completely. Because then now, it really became something scientific, provable, replicable, over and over and over and over again, okay? And that's where I'm gonna leave it today. And I will touch on, so next up is, I think my next one is Colin. He is the one that I know the most about. Colin DeYoung is his name. He's a researcher that's currently working on the Big Five, and it's just, again, it's so interesting to me, and he's the one that I'm going to touch on next on our history of the Big Five. And let's see what else. So again, right, the NEOPIR is practical usefulness. It predicted real life outcomes better than most other models at the time. So it doesn't just tell you who you are right now, it tells you what your future might be like. Like, isn't that amazing? That's amazing, right? It's like wow. It's wow. So that's where we're at, and hopefully I'll be able to do a video next week. No, I want to try to do a video every week, at least one, okay? And but yes, so my least is one, my most is, I don't know, however many I can get. But thank you so much for being here. See you guys later. Bye.